chapter 11, the very last chapter for this year, okay? So 11.1, ratios and proportions, okay? And then percents and using them, okay? So a ratio and a proportion. Hopefully this is stuff you guys did or know about at least, okay? So you should remember, I think we did this year, a ratio, okay? And problems to solve a ratio. So just to refresh your memory, okay? A ratio compares two quantities. So boys to girls, they have the same units, okay? Or no, yeah, okay, compares two quantities, okay? So something like A to B, A to B, or you could say A to B with the word to, okay? It's just a comparison of two quantities. Generally, we make it look like a fraction, okay? When you have an equation that states two ratios are equal, it's called a proportion. Okay? So something like A over B equals C over D. These are two ratios. We are saying they are equal. We've now made a proportion. The only thing is that B and D cannot equal 0 because they're fractions, right? We can't divide by 0. So when it's written this way, okay, the numerator on the left and the denominator on the right are called extremes. And the denominator on the left and the numerator on the right are called the means. Okay? So when you have a proportion, there are two properties that we can use to solve them. Okay? And it's the reciprocal property and the cross product property. So what the reciprocal property says is that if you have a proportion, so A over B is equal to C over D, okay? You have a proportion. Then their reciprocals are equal. So we can say that B over A is equal to D over C. Okay? And the cross product is the most common, and it says that if A over B equals C over D, so you have a proportion, then their cross products are equal. So the product of the extremes equals the product of the means. So AD equals BC. Okay? You're crossing over the equal sign. And that's the cross product. Again, hopefully you've seen ratios and proportions. Okay? So when you have a variable in there, you can use either the cross product or the reciprocal property. Generally, you use the cross product because it's just the easiest to use. Okay? So if we have 2 over 3 equals 3 over W, we want to get W by itself. Okay? So we're going to use a cross product, which tells us that numerator times denominator, 2W, equals denominator times numerator. So 3 times 3. Okay? So I think in my notes I use the reciprocal property just to show you how it works. Okay? It's added steps. Don't think it's really necessary. I would just use the cross product property. Okay? So then I have 2W equals 9. This is a problem we have solved before. Okay? Undo the multiplication, get W by itself. We're going to divide both sides by 2. There is no need to write this as a decimal. Just make sure it's a fraction that is completely reduced, and we get that W should equal 9 over 2. Okay? So you could use the reciprocal property, but It's not necessary. The cross product is just as useful. Okay, I have 10 over t equals 2t over 5. Right, I want to get t by itself. So the first thing and the easiest is get rid of those fractions. Okay, you get rid of those fractions by using the cross product. So 10 times 5 equals t times 2t. So 10 times 5 is 50, and 2t times t is 2t squared. Okay, isolate t, figure out what it's equal to. So first thing is undo the multiplication by division. So 25 equals t squared. Okay, how do you undo squaring something? You take the square root. So we're going to take the square root of both sides. So square root of 25 is 5. Square root of t squared is t, but you're solving for a variable, so remember, you have to look at the positive and the negative answer. So t is plus or minus 5. And we've solved our proportion. Okay? All right, one more. Biggest factor here is using the cross product, okay? But because you have fractions, you always have to check your answers in the original solution. Sometimes your answer won't actually work, and you're going to get what's called an extraneous solution. It's a fancy way of saying it's false. It does not work. Okay, maybe I'm dividing by 0, but it's an extraneous solution. Okay, so we're solving negative 3 over d equals d minus 3 over 2d. Okay, so get rid of your fractions, cross product. So negative 3 times 2d equals d times d minus 3. Okay, so simplify this. We get negative 6 times d equals, use the distributive property, d squared minus 3d. So you have a d squared and a d term. Put them on both on one side. So we're going to add 6d to both sides. That gives 0 equals d squared plus 3d. Then you need to factor to get d by itself. Okay, I'm going to take out a d. So get d times d plus 3. We just learned how to do that in 10.8. Okay, use the zero product property. So d equals 0, or d plus 3 equals 0. So we get negative 3. Okay, but we have to check these. So if I put d equals 0 here, I get negative 3 over 0. Can I do that? Can't. So that's not actually a solution. Okay, you need to check the other one. So we get negative 3 over negative 3. Does that equal negative 3 minus 3 over 2 times negative 3? So that would be 1. Does that equal 1? And it does. So our only solution is d equals negative 3. Okay, you have to check to make sure you don't have extraneous solutions, something that's false, doesn't actually work. Okay, so cross product and reciprocal property for solving proportions.